The 2024 NFL Draft is in the books. Which teams assembled our favorite draft classes? We're exploring that today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who make Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play.
Joe, we had a really fun weekend. We had a lot of people who swung by and hung out with us on Thursday and Friday, which is very cool. What did you do on Saturday?
On Saturday, I pretty much lived in the Locked On Bills subtext and Discord. So we got out a bunch of interactive things with Bills Mafia and had a lot of fun. It was nice to kind of have a different approach to that day and take in the draft as opposed to talking it through, which I love. I love both of it, but it was nice to be able to kind of be more available for the Mafia.
Well, I also appreciated the contrast of processing it in real time without having to talk through it, right? Like we're on the live stream and these picks happen and you kind of piece it together and then the next pick happens and you have to move on. Where Saturday for me was a little bit more, it was the same thing. I was in my Discord channel and kind of watching the board as it falls, talking about specifically like, hey, here's how it's breaking. Here's my short list. And it was a lot of fun to kind of have a different experience, like you said. But now we're
you
here.
know what my favorite thing about that was?
What?
Is I'm sitting there doing the same thing. Like, all right, who do we want? Who do we want? And I probably, I don't know, for multiple picks in a row, I was like, who I'd really like the Bills to get? How about either Malik Washington or Mo Kamara? Either one of those would be great picks. I'd really love for those guys to be the picks.
Well, it's a continuation of the trends of every single year. It was Chop Robinson in the first round. I know you were higher on than I was. And, I end up with your brand guys every year.
Yep. So, me.
What brand guy that you guys landed is going to absolutely kill me? It's probably Cole Bishop was like my I was pro Cole Bishop. So he'll be a stud for the Bills because that's how it works.
Well, we'll see what happens, Kyle Crabbs. The objective today, declare our favorite draft classes. We've each come with 3. Kyle's ranked his 1 to 32. You have a very process-driven approach to how you like to assess draft classes. And if I can for a second, this is the time of year for draft grades, all right? And I know that there's a lot of different opinions about draft grades. But here's the deal. That's absolutely true. But this is my thought process on draft grades. Again, nobody's right or wrong right now. But if you evaluated the class, then you've earned the right to assess how each team did based on your interpretation and evaluation of the prospects. All right, I can buy that. But if you didn't evaluate the class, then you did not earn the right to assess how the teams did. And your criteria has to be based on how it aligns with my personal perspective of these players. And that's what I can respect about you, Kyle, and your process. You evaluated the class, and then your process for seeing what aligns with your personal interpretation is very, very logical to me.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily it's my expected value for your picks. So everybody knows about the trade value charts, which the teams use some iteration of to kind of discuss compensation packages to exchange picks and so on and so forth. And there's values for all of the picks. So all the picks in the draft have an assigned value. So I have my preferred chart that I use out of all of the charts that are available. And then there's a corresponding value that is assigned to the players as well. So if you're my first ranked player, you get the value. Actually, that's not true. I take the average. So that I have a top 10 pick tier. The first 10 picks in the draft get assigned the corresponding point value. And then the players with the first, or players that got the top 10 value grade, got the average point value of picks 1 through 10, if that makes sense. And the point is, I don't want to punish the first overall team for having the first overall pick and picking the first overall player, and they get 0 points to show for it. Right? And technically speaking, that is how that works. But if we talk about tiers and tiering players and putting players in first round tiers and second round tiers and top 10 tiers, I take the average so that there is an opportunity for net positive selections at the very tippy top of the draft. And then each round, it's descending percentage of weight that you receive out of the maximum possible of just raw net expected points versus actual points. And then you get the draft class and you add it all up. And the sum of that is how much surplus or how short you were on expected value with your picks for the players based on how I rank them.
So very formulaic. And Kyle's not a math guy. I'm not a math guy, but spreadsheets are really good at math. So that's what enables you to get that correct. All right. So shall we get on with declaring our favorite draft classes? I could probably sneak my top one in here before the break.
We might have overlap on this one too. So we might be able to say both of our win was the same one. So go ahead.
I definitely had my favorite two. And then there's like a 3. Okay. I'll go, man. Okay. Because predictively, I think we're going to align on this. I'll say the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers were the number one return on expected value in the draft for me based on my rankings as well.
So I know that you have a very process-driven approach to how you landed there. But for me, just looking at what was accomplished to get Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier to fix this offensive line, which was absolutely necessary. And I really love that they didn't panic and they didn't force Graham Barton, right, at pick 20. They got the better player. And then we're still able to be patient and get the center in the second round and Zach Frazier, which I think are just pillar pieces for this offensive line moving forward. You needed a wide receiver. You remain patient. You get Roman Wilson, which is a great complementary skill set to what you have in George Pickens. And then Peyton Wilson in the third round, who, as we've all declared, first round tape, UDFA medicals, but a perfectly reasonable swing at that point in the draft. And then, of course, coming back in the fourth round and getting Mason McCormick, another athletic depth piece for your offensive line. I think those top 5 picks were literally probably exactly the 5 picks I personally would have made when they were on the clock.
Yeah, this is big time surplus value in each of these spots. Fautanu was a top 5 player for me in the class. I know I was disproportionately high on him, but to get him at 20, whether, obviously I think there is an expectation that he will play tackle for Pittsburgh. Some people had him graded and ranked as a guard. And then Frazier, as you mentioned, Roman Wilson was a plus value. I had a second round valuation on him. He goes in the third round. And just the theme of all of the pieces together. I think you look at the offensive additions of Fautanu and Frazier and McCormick and Wilson, and these are all like dogs, right? They're all, you think about the stereotype for the AFC North and how you play football in that division. And they have a type. We've talked to Ozzie Newsome about this in the past, right? And we had a chance to sit down with Ozzie Newsome a few summers ago and talk to him about, like, what are you looking for when you identify what that guy plays like a Baltimore Raven on tape? Mm-hmm. And I think when retroactively or with the foresight that Fautanu, Frazier, Wilson, and McCormick are going to land in Pittsburgh, you'd say, yeah, they play like Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
So I think all of that together in addition to just the numbers, which make it a lot easier for me to pick a favorite class, just because it's like, well, here's who got the most value according to how I graded the players. The home run draft for Pittsburgh. Absolutely.
After a home run draft that included Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington. So Omar Kahn, welcome to the game. You are killing it. All right, speaking of killing it, we got more draft classes to get to here in just a moment, so be sure to stick with us. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Folks, you shouldn't have to worry when you're looking to buy tickets to your next big event. Well, you don't have to, because Game Time is here for you. And it's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I love that they specialize in last-minute tickets, because now as a family of 4 with a newborn, I don't know what I'm doing in July or August, but there's concerts I'd like to go to. They specialize in those last-minute tickets, so that way I can decide the day of if I can go, because my availability is absolutely in flux. So check it out. Snag those last-minute tickets. They also give you a great app that you can navigate that gives you seat images. They give you a best price guarantee, and they also send the tickets directly to your phone when you purchase them, so you don't have to dig through emails. So snag the tickets without the stress. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Hey, you know what really grinding my gears down the stretch for the draft on Saturday?
What's that?
You know, you put together player rankings and you're sitting there and you're just wondering when all the players past a certain threshold are going to come off the board, or like, when's your last top 100 guy going to come off the board, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's guys with medical questions or character questions, and they go undrafted altogether. And it's like, dang, you look back at how you had the rankings, and you just you reflect on the final product, and you wonder, like, hey, what did I miss with this guy? What did I miss with that guy?
Yeah.
You know how many top 100 players I had that went undrafted?
Oh, I'm guessing a small amount.
1.
Oh, so who's the one?
Gabe Murphy.
Well, you should have known. You got 30-inch arms.
30.5-inch arms edge rusher that I had the 4th round grade on and ranked 99th overall.
Oh, no.
I guess should have just pushed somebody else up there in 2 spots and been done with it. But
I'm not sure I had a top 100 player not get drafted.
So I was like, man, this is 7th round. Just go.
Somebody pick him.
Somebody pick him. He's a good athlete. Nope. Never went. Like, dude, I had a 4th round grade on him. How are you really going to sit here and this is give you the one?
Plays hard, though. All right. Shall we get into more draft classes? I'm not sure if I went first there or not, but.
You did. Yeah, I'll go next with my number 2.
Okay.
My number 2, this should be of absolutely no surprise, belongs to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, yeah, my number 2 as well.
Okay, so we'll talk about them, and if we need to get into some honorable mentions in segment 3, if we go too quick, we can do that.
All right.
Quinyon Mitchell at 22, Cooper Dejean at 40. Being aggressive, they went up and got him. I didn't really love the Jalix Hunt pick as a developmental guy, but clearly they see a lot there, and there is a lot of tools to work with. It just was not a net positive return, but as an end of 3rd round pick, again, plus value with the pick at 22 and the pick at 40, which was 2 players that ranked in my top 15 overall. And their fit in that system. I know we talked about it on the streams on Thursday and Friday, but that youth versatility, man coverage ability, but also simultaneously like vision zone coverage ability, being able to play off and play from depth, which both of those guys did a lot of in college for Fangio, makes a lot of sense. And then you get into day 3. I like the Will Shipley pick for them. I like the Anaya Smith pick for them. I thought the Jeremiah Trotter selection was really good value. I had like a late 3 on him. Johnny Wilson is a great flyer to take at 185. So I think you get into day 3, and there's a lot of guys that I had fringe top 100, like between 101 and 120. I had Shipley, Smith, Wilson, and then Trotter I had in the top 100. And they got those guys on day 3 to go with this 1-2 punch at the very tippy top of the class. It's a really, really good job. Job well done.
Yeah, I love what Howie Roseman was able to do, not only in this draft, but he positioned them well for next year as well with kind of stockpiling future picks. So you got a lot done overall for now and into the future. But you mentioned those top 2 picks in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper Dejean. Obviously, we know the needs in the secondary were pretty significant, and they get 2 phenomenal talents. You said both in your top 15. Those are my 10 and 11th players overall.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you know,
6 and 13 were for me. Yeah,
I mean, you get those at 22 and 40. I mean, that's just phenomenal. And yeah, I didn't love the Jalix Hunt pick, but this next trio of picks of Will Shipley, Anais Smith, and Jeremiah Trotter, I can really get behind, especially when you consider the pass catching ability of Will Shipley. And, you know, I think that they can get pretty creative with how they use him to complement Saquon Barkley. And they also have Kenneth Gainwell. So there's just like a ton of versatility with their backs. And you could have 2 backs on the field and very easily have one of them play receiver, and you kind of force some personnel groupings that you can fully take advantage of. So I love the vision there. And then how do you not love Jeremiah Trotter to them, especially pick 155? Yeah. Like, are you kidding? And like a very clear path. They signed Devin White. Like I would not be surprised if Jeremiah Trotter winds up having a better career than Devin White, just based on the way that I perceive Devin White as a player. So I'm over the moon with what Howie did, even some of the late round picks. I mean, Trevor Keegan, Dylan McMahon as depth pieces for the offensive line, and Johnny Wilson in the 6th round, you know, just that body type with no pressure to do anything, but like find out. Very, very reasonable swings, good value, filling needs, helping yourself for next year. Howie's building some pretty friggin' good rosters there in Philadelphia, and this draft just continues to add to it.
And this is classes like this are important when Philly is so committed to the cash spend, and like they're going to continue to spend cash because they keep extending their players, but with how they're structuring it to be pulling from future years or prorating out into future years with the void years and how they structure their contracts, getting the pipe, the divide between like when we really need you versus when we take you is a little bit wider, I think, than some other teams. But that's what makes the perception that we have of classes like this that are really good ones really important, because they made the investments within the last 24 months to retain James Bradbury and to retain Darius Slay. And now they have guys in the pipe to compete with those guys. And maybe it'll be a hard pill to swallow to move on from one of the older guys for the salary cap implications. If these guys come in, they're ready to go and you feel good about it. But at the very least, it's going to be a really deep group, and that's not a bad problem to have.
Yeah, I think the X factors for Philly this season is just like, all right, what does Juergens and Steen look like playing next to each other, guard center? That's the big transition. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited to see Nolan Smith, who I thought very highly of as a prospect last year. You know, obviously, I think they're going to need him to become a thing here for this defense, but this roster's looking good. And at some point in the pretty near future, we're going to start getting into like assessing these rosters. And I got a feeling Philadelphia is going to slot pretty well when it's all said and done.
Dude, so they had this bevy of pass rushers to begin with. They move on from Hassan Reddick, but they sign Bryce Huff.
Right.
They have Jalix Hunt now, in addition to Nolan Smith, who was in the pipeline from last year. It's
Josh Sweat.
And right, well, the Josh Sweat and the other vet guys.
Yeah.
So just even amidst the transition, that's kind of what I was alluding to with what we're expecting with Mitchell and Dejean now, is it's like that process has been underway in the edge group. And you can kind of look across the board was that way with Juergens and being ahead on Kelsey's retirement and drafting Anthony Steen ahead last year, and how it all kind of there's a rolling process of veteran player we're committed to, even if we pay him, and it makes it more difficult to have flexibility for a stretch. But then we bring somebody in, and then we can phase them out. And you look up and down this roster, and what that has yielded is a very deep roster.
Can I give you a big cherry on top?
Yeah.
Gabe Hall was one of the UDFAs.
Yeah. Did Buffalo get, I know we're up against it for break. Did Buffalo get any good UDFAs?
Frank Gore Jr.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's the one that everyone's all excited about. We're going to see him a lot in the preseason. The state of Pennsylvania, Kyle Crabbs, good at drafting football players. I'll be getting outside the state of Pennsylvania in segment 3. I'm sure you have to. There's no more teams. So find out here in just a moment. So be sure to stick with us. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. You can get unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new time tournaments and events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent on Frenzies. There's a lot here, man. There's always something new and fun to discover with Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it for free on the App Store, Google Play. Game on.
When's the last time you played a pachinko machine?
Brother, I'll tell you. It's been a minute. It's been a minute there, Kyle Crabbs. Yeah.
All right. So let's do third place teams. And I would like to get some honorable mentions in because I think there's a lot of really fun draft classes that are here. I was a little surprised that this team checked in where they did, but I thought there were some solid day 3 values, and then I thought they knocked their 1 and 2 out of the park. It was Seattle.
All right.
And we talked about Seattle and the need in the trenches for them, both in the run defense and guys who could hold the point of attack. And then that interior offensive line getting gutted the way that it did. And their first 2 picks are Byron Murphy, who was a top 5 player for me and the highest ranked defensive player in the class. You get him at 16. Christian Haynes, the guard from Connecticut, very much. If you told me he was the successor to Damian Lewis at guard for the Seattle Seahawks, you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see how that would come together for you pretty well.
A lot of athleticism there. Yeah.
And I had him as a fringe top 50 player, had a second round grade on him. They get him at 81. So they get him in the middle of the 3rd round. And then I thought Nehemiah Pritchett, AJ Barner, Satoa Luema from Utah, and DJ James were all good day 3 values for them as well. So I think really, really good value at the first 2 picks and then some solid value throughout on day 3.
Yeah, it's a good call out. I really do like Seattle's draft as well. Like you mentioned, Pritchett, Luamea, James, 5th and 6th round picks are the cherry on top for Murphy and Haynes with their top 2. Big fan, but not the team that I picked. My other that I came to the table with, Cincinnati Bengals. Man, I'm in love with it. I don't want to be in love with it, but I'm in love with it. I think the world of Amarius Mims is a tackle prospect. And yeah, I mean, is there some reward or risk reward there? For sure, but I think it's a very reasonable swing. I think he's going to be a star. He has the potential to be a star. And what he can mean for that run game to move bodies would be huge. And of course, I think he's going to be awesome in pass protection. I think the ceiling is just ridiculous with him. And then I thought the world of Chris Jenkins as well. Chris Jenkins, for me, was my 29th player in this class. They get him at 49 after like a big run on defensive tackles. So to be able to stay patient and still get a big-time player there, in my view, lands in a big way, especially when, I feel like they've had this nice pair of BJ Hill and DJ Reader, but like you could just tell when DJ Reader was out that the defense was different. And now, of course, DJ Reader's in Detroit, but between adding Sheldon Rankins and Chris Jenkins, that's a lot of juice that they were able to.
No love for McKinley Jackson, top 100 pick.
Yeah, huh? I don't have love for McKinley Jackson, but I do have love for Jermaine Burton, who another like unbelievable ceiling, right? And risk reward, I totally get it, but I don't know. Like, is it crazy to say Jermaine Burton has first round talent? I don't think that's crazy. So
to get him on my board, so I mean, he was right there.
Right. 80th overall. I'm in love with it. And then, they don't make a big investment in tight end, but Tanner McLaughlin, who's pretty natural as a receiving talent later on, I really enjoyed that pick. Toolsy player and Cedric Johnson. I'm a fan of how this helps their football team, and reloads in some really big spots when it comes to tackle, receiver, and the interior defensive line.
I put Eric All in there, tight end too. When we could consider what their tight end room was coming into the draft to get both of those guys, I like that competition quite a bit. So I think there's a lot of upside with this group. I think they were opportunistic with the Burton pick. I think the board fell pretty well to them with the picks at 18 and 49. And you don't want to miss that run, right? As there was one thing as I'm looking through the full results after the fact, and you see where the run started on players and how quickly it could happen in some of those cases. I mean, the offensive tackles in the first round, you had 7 running backs and a positional value. I get it, but you had 7 running backs and 14 picks at the beginning.
Fourth round. Yeah, that's crazy.
So they went hard, and you, within a span of 15 picks, you went from saying, we got a lot of options here. I think we can probably get somebody who can contribute to us, to it being totally gone.
Yeah, cleaned
totally
up.
Gone. Yeah. The edge rush run happened in 6 picks in the middle of the first round from 15 to 21. And it happened fast. And then your expectations for what you can get after that point, you don't want to draft for need, but the runs are a dynamic of the draft that I think are really interesting. Yeah. Can I give some love to Chef Monty?
Yes.
It's a great class. And it was top 6 for me in my rank. It wasn't 4th, but it was top 6. And just the way that they, once again, moved up and down the board at times. They got good value. I thought their first 4 picks were outstanding value with Harrison, Darius Robinson, Max Melton, and Trey Benson. You get into some of their later picks. I thought Elijah Jones, I had him ranked in the 60s. He went at 90. Dadrian Taylor Demerson, they got a 104. Xavier Thomas, they got a 138.
I had Taylor Demerson as a top 50 player in the class. So
yeah,
through the moon over that pick for sure.
I just look up and down this draft class, and good values, good players, and kind of a blank slate type team, which I think makes it easier to draft like this, right?
Oh God, yeah.
It's like, hey, let's not make this harder than it has to be. We need everything. Let's treat it like it. And they did.
Good call out there. They were on my list of like bullpen. They're close. That's certainly one of my favorites, I would say, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Any other shout outs you want to give?
You don't have any honorable mentions?
Well, that was my honorable mention. You
only have one honorable mention?
Yeah, I had one honorable mention. If you give me a second, I could probably consider another one.
I'll go Chargers. I'll buy you a little time here.
I like
Joe Alt was my first ranked player in the class. I had Ladd McConkey 31st. He went 34th. They get Cam Hart on day 3 at what was that, 140? Really toolsy corner. Junior Colson, I thought, was plus value in the 3rd round. I think if Boydby can play a lot of snaps for them. You know, for how many years have we been talking about the interior defense line of the Chargers, right? Just needing guys that are stout guys. And then a couple of wide receivers that I think are big, physical, fit the mold of what they're doing in the 7th round with Brendan Rice and Cornelius Johnson. I think those guys are good fits. as physical perimeter players with large catch radius, but can win down the field to some degree. I think this is a very coherent first draft for the Chargers.
Got one for you. The Detroit Lions. Like what they did, being able to get Terry and Arnold, they had to move up just a modest move up to get, arguably the top corner in the class, a clear position of need, and then doubling down with Ennis Rakestraw, who's very much a Detroit Lion brand player through and through. I was a big fan of Mekhi Wingo. I thought pretty highly of him. I thought he was the best of the LSU defensive tackles. I think he was the third one drafted. I thought he was the best one very clearly. Just kind of has a stumpy build, but the guy can play. Then Christian Mahogany in the 6th round. I mean, I know there's some medical stuff there to be mindful of, but the guy can play. He can flat out play. So Vaki going back to running back, brand player for them. He'll be an asset for them at a minimum on special teams, which is
so
huge.
Glad they announced him as a running back.
Right. That was cool. I don't know a thing about Giovanni Manu, the University of British Columbia was an international pathway program or whatever's going on there, but 6'7", 352, ran 4.96. We'll take a swing, right? See what we can unlock there. So I thought Detroit with their secondary needs and then just getting players I liked up and down, which has become a normal thing for Brad Holmes. Big fan of what they did.
I would shout out San Francisco as well. Would be my last one. Pearsall, and not just because they picked Pretty Ricky, but Pearsall, Renardo Green, Dominic Puny, Malik Mustafa, Isaac Arendo, Jacob Cowing. That stretch of picks right
Exceptional.
there
Yep.
is outstanding. Now, I think they were a little bit more of a proportionate value team. And what I mean by that is I had Ricky Pearsall graded late 1, early 2. He went late 1, early 2. Renardo Green I had ranked in the 2nd round. He went 64th overall. Dominic Puny, Malik Mustafa, and Isaac Arendo I had very early 4s on. It went with a late 3 and 2 4s that are in the middle of the 4th round. Jacob Cowing I had a 5th round grade on. He went with the very last pick of the 4th round. So they drafted very parallel to where I kind of coveted all of those players. But to do it every single time when you're on the board and not go away from how I coveted the players at any stage, I think is why they get a shout out for me. I think they had a great draft.
You want more shout outs or we? I like Baltimore as well.
Baltimore was top 8 draft for me too.
Yeah, Wiggins, Rosengarter with your top 2 picks, very clear paths to playing time. I don't love Adisa Isaac, but Devontae Walker in the 4th round, a vertical threat. TJ Tampa, the slide finally fell. I had a 2nd round grade on TJ Tampa. They get him in the 4th round. Good value.
Sheena Lee late's a nice ad for them too.
5th round depth at running back. Yeah, I think the Ravens crushed it. So even the Browns, the whole AFC North, I think crushed it.
The whole AFC North and the whole NFC West. So I liked a lot of what the Rams did too. So those 2 divisions I think come away and it should be pretty fired up about what they got done. That is going to do it for us here on this episode of Locked On NFL Scouting. I'm Kyle Crabbs. Wait, I point this way now. He's Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys for checking out the show. I changed my backdrop. All my behind me stuff that's my landmarks to know what way to go is totally different. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Make it a great rest of your Monday. We will be back again tomorrow to react to more from the 2024 NFL Draft. But for now, we're out of here.